Babysitting is built on trust. The trust of parents who hand their children to someone else for the evening. The trust of a young person who steps into someone else's home alone with children asleep upstairs and no one else in the building. Both sides of that arrangement require an enormous amount of faith in the other. Most of the time, that faith is warranted. Most babysitting shifts end quietly. The children sleep, the sitter watches something on television, the parents come home and say thank you, and everyone goes home safely. But a babysitter alone in a house at night is in a particular kind of vulnerability, responsible for lives other than their own, in an unfamiliar space, often young, often without anyone who knows exactly where they are or what the layout of the building looks like. The people in these stories know that now. These are true accounts sent in by real people. Names have been changed. Everything else is exactly as it was told to me. Story 1.
This story comes from a woman I will call Amy. She was 17 at the time, babysitting for a family she had sat for twice before. A couple in their 30s with 2 children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 4. The parents were going to a dinner and would be back by 11. The children had been in bed by 7:30. Standard evening. She had done this before. At 9:15, the boy called down from upstairs. He said he needed water. She brought it up, checked on both children, found the girl still asleep, settled the boy back down. She went back to the living room. At 9:45, he called again. Said he had heard a noise. She went upstairs, checked both rooms, checked the landing. Nothing. She sat with him for a few minutes until he settled. At 10:10, he called a third time. This time, when she reached the top of the stairs, he was standing in the hallway outside his room. He looked at her and said in a very small voice, "There is someone in the garden." Amy put the boy back in his room and told him to stay there and keep the door closed. She did not go to the window herself. She went back downstairs, turned off the living room lamp so the room was dark, and stood to one side of the back window where she could see out without being seen from outside. The garden was a reasonable size: lawn, a wooden fence at the back, a shed in the far right corner. The security light had not triggered. Everything looked still. She was about to step away from the window when the shed door moved. Not violently, not dramatically, just the slow, careful swing of a door being eased open from inside by someone who did not want to make noise. Amy called the parents. She called them before she called anyone else because she needed to hear a voice she knew. The father told her to take both children to the front bedroom, lock the door, and call 999 immediately. She did all 3 in under 2 minutes. Police arrived in 4 minutes. A man was found hiding in the shed. He had been there since before Amy arrived. The parents confirmed the shed had been closed and padlocked that morning, and they had not opened it since. He had a prior conviction for burglary. He had been waiting, apparently, for the house lights to go off before he moved. They never fully established how long he had been in the shed or how he had got into the garden without triggering the security light. The sensor, it turned out, covered the patio, but not the side gate. Amy told me the detail that stayed with her longest was the boy, 7 years old, lying in bed in the dark, listening to the garden below his window. He had heard something. He had called down 3 times, trying to tell someone. And each time she had gone up, checked the obvious things, and come back down reassured. She said, "He knew before I did. He kept trying to tell me, and I kept telling him it was nothing. If he had not called a third time, I would have sat in that living room until the parents came home and never known." Children hear things differently. I believe that now completely. Story 2. This story comes from a young man I will call Jake. He was 16, babysitting his younger cousins, 2 boys aged 8 and 10, at his aunt's house while she and her husband attended a wedding 2 hours away. He had done it before. He knew the house. He was comfortable there. The doorbell rang at 8:30. Jake checked through the peephole. A man he did not recognize. Mid-40s, ordinary appearance, a jacket and jeans. The man said through the door that he was a friend of Jake's aunt and that he needed to pick something up she had left for him. Jake said he did not know anything about that and asked what the item was. The man paused and then said it was an envelope in the kitchen. His aunt had told him to collect it this evening. Jake texted his aunt immediately. While he waited for a reply, he told the man, politely, that he would need to confirm with her first. The man said that was fine and that he would wait.
His aunt replied within 2 minutes. She had left no envelope for anyone. She did not have a friend matching that description. She did not know who was at the door. Jake did not open the door. He texted back that it was fine and that he had handled it. He went back to the peephole. The man was still there. He rang the bell again. He said he was sorry to be a nuisance, but he really needed to collect it tonight. He said Jake's aunt must have forgotten to mention it. He said it would only take a moment. Jake said, through the door, that he had spoken to his aunt and she had confirmed there was no envelope and that he would not be opening the door. There was a silence. Then, the man tried the door handle. Jake called 999. He gathered both younger boys into the front room, away from the door, and kept them there. He stayed on the line with the operator until he heard a car outside, and the operator confirmed officers were arriving. When police reached the property, the man was still standing on the doorstep. He had not run. He had simply waited. He was taken in for questioning. He had a prior record for offenses against property. He gave no coherent explanation for why he had remained on the doorstep after being told no one would open the door. He was released without charge that evening. No crime had technically been committed at that point. Jake's aunt arrived home to find police in her driveway. She told Jake she was more grateful than she could say. She told him he had done everything right. Jake told me the rule he has kept since that night. He does not open a door to an unknown person when he is alone in someone else's house with children present. Not for any reason, not for any story, however plausible it sounds. He said, the envelope story was almost convincing. If I had been less careful, if I had been a little younger or a little less certain of myself, I might have opened the door just to be polite. The whole thing was designed to sound like the kind of misunderstanding you feel bad about creating. That is exactly what made it dangerous.
Story 3. The last story was sent to me by a woman I will call Rachel. She was 15. She was babysitting alone for a family on her street. A baby asleep in a cot upstairs. Parents at a restaurant 20 minutes away. She had their number. She had the address. She was confident. The landline rang at 9 o'clock. She answered it. There was a pause, and then a man's voice said, "How are the children?" She hung up. She assumed it was a wrong number or a prank. She went back to the television. It rang again at 9:15. Same voice. "You should check on the baby."
She hung up and called the parents. They told her to ignore it, probably kids messing around, but to call back if it continued. At 9:30, the phone rang a third time. This time, the voice said, "I can see you from the window. The blue jumper suits you." She was wearing a blue jumper.
Rachel did not hang up slowly. She put the phone down and moved away from the window immediately and called the parents from her mobile. The father told her to go upstairs, take the baby, lock herself in the main bedroom, and call 999. He and his wife were already in the car. She did all of that. She sat on the bedroom floor with the baby in her arms and the door locked, and stayed on the line with the police until she heard the parents' car in the drive and then officers at the front door. Officers searched the street and the gardens adjacent to the house. They found a man 3 doors down who had a clear sightline to the living room window from a gap in a hedge. He had a mobile phone with the house's landline number in the recent calls. He denied making the calls. The evidence said otherwise.
He was charged and convicted of harassment. Rachel was told she had responded exactly correctly from the 3rd call onward. She told me what she thinks about most is the first 2 calls. How she hung up and went back to the television. How the 2nd call made her uneasy, but not quite frightened enough. How it took the blue jumper, that single specific detail that only someone watching her could have known, to make everything real. She said she wishes she had called the parents and the police after the 1st call. She said that in hindsight, the 1st call alone, a stranger asking how the children were in the dark on a house phone, was enough. She said, "I kept looking for a threshold. I kept waiting until I was certain enough. But certainty comes too late. You act on the first thing that is wrong, not the 3rd.
3 babysitters. 3 evenings that started the way thousands of babysitting shifts start every single night. Quietly, with children asleep and the television on and a few hours to fill before the parents came home. A few things worth passing on. If a child tells you something is wrong, take it seriously before you explain it away. Never open the door to an unknown caller when you are alone with children. No story is worth that risk. And if something on the phone or at the door makes you uneasy, call the parents and the police on the first thing that feels wrong, not the 3rd. Rachel said it best. Act on the first sign, not when you are certain. By the time you are certain, you have waited too long. If you have a true story of your own, something that happened while babysitting, something that changed how you think about being alone in someone else's home, send it to the email in the description. I read every one. The fire is still burning. I will see you at the next story.